Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I will be presenting on my internship program. The organization I chose is Unit Counseling, Bahagian Hal Ehwal Pelajar from Jabatan Sekolah-Sekolah. This presentation will demonstrate my experiences and observations from Unit Counseling. These are the table of contents, which I will discuss the introduction to unit counseling, my experiences gained from unit counseling, and as well as my observations and my perspective on unit counseling. Firstly, introduction to unit counseling. What you need to know about unit counseling. Their philosophy, vision, mission, and motto. Their philosophy is every child is unique, dynamic, and has the potential to develop to the fullest. Their vision, together upholding the excellence of the new generation. Their mission, holistic guidance and counseling services in developing quality learners. And their motto, students' concern is our priority. Uh, do take note that most of the information I have on unit counseling is in Malay language, so I have to translate it based on the idea of their their information. Um, so the it might not be a direct translation from the Malay language. Next, their purpose of their service. It's to develop the potential in aspects of academic, personality, social, and emotion, as well as be initiative, help to obtain skills to encounter various situations in present times and the future. Lastly, balance process in intellectual, spiritual, emotional, and physical development. There are functions and roles in unit counseling. It's to evaluate the effectiveness of the programs, which I will explain more later, identify weaknesses and issues, as well as to initiate solutions, especially with other counselors from different schools. It's to provide guidance and counseling services in schools, to students as well who are referred. Um, they act as an expert in teacher and parent consultation, to provide programs with elements of awareness, motivation, and behavioral modification of students, to provide staff development for counselors and guidance teachers. There is a specific program for this particular function. Lastly, coordinate and supervise the planning, conduct procedure management, to ensure the planned programs cover the four main components. So this is the four main components of counseling and guidance services. It would be academic development, counseling services, social issues awareness education, and personality development. Programs. Firstly, we have the Khusus Asas Bimbingan dan Counseling, which is catered to Guru Bimbingan. So they are quite different from counselors. So this is quite important for Guru Bimbingan to improve their skills and gain more knowledge on how to counsel students. Next, we have Kemahiran Keibubapaan Sama-sama Kita Ni. This one is catered to parents. So the officers and the parents in respective schools will have meetings on specific issues. Next, we have the raising awareness on sexual harassment, or RAWASH for short. Next, we have the student bodies for different levels. We have primary, which is PRM. We have PRS in secondary level. And lastly, we have PRR in sixth form, for sixth form students. Next, we have Bengkel Psikopendidikan, which caters to kesadaran kesehatan mental. Next, we have the SINAR program. So the SINAR program is very specific. It has certain agencies for specific schools, and mostly the agencies will be catered to what the school needs. So these are the agencies for SINAR. Firstly, we have the Narcotics Control Bureau. We have the Cybersecurity Brunei, the Police Diraja Brunei. We have KAFA as well. We have the Penjara. We have the Islamic Dakwah Center as well. We have the JAPEM too. So most of the agencies are very specific and catered to what the school needs. Okay, so we're moving on to my experiences gained from unit counseling, the experiences that I truly value. The skills that I've gained is public speaking. Even though I am quite experienced in speaking publicly, but mm, this experience is quite new because during the events, I was the MC for most of the time, and it really helped me improve in my language and my pronunciation, especially in Malay language. And for being an MC, I can do it spontaneously as well. I feel like that is a skill that I've gained, and feel like it is also quite important. Managing functions, Microsoft software. So far, we have done a lot of certificates, documents using Excel, Publisher, and Microsoft Words. And most of the times, I do a lot of Googling on how to resolve specific issues and learn about the more function about Microsoft Words and Excel. Managing technical issues, so that one would be included with the previous point. And also, I've learned quite a lot with managing microphones and projectors. Multitasking, this is especially when it comes to events. I have to be the MC and I have to be the photographer as well. I also have to help the other intern to take attendance of the counselors, guru bimbingan, and such. So I feel like multitasking is really a skill that you have to learn when it comes to being understaffed, especially when the interns are not enough to do such loads of work. Another skill that I've improved is my Malay language. Um, Even though it's just 14 weeks, but my Malay has tremendously improved, and now I'm quite comfortable with using Malay language, regardless whether it's standard or colloquial. Um, Lastly, it would be communicating with many people of all ages, so that would include primary students, secondary students, um, my age group as well, and also especially older people. Um, so I have I have the skills to change my behavior and use of words when it comes to communicating to specific age groups. Next, the knowledge that I've gained is how unit counseling operates in educational settings. Previously, I didn't know about unit counseling in Jabatan Sekolah until I saw in the internship program list. All I know is every school they have counselors as well. But so far, from my old school, I have mm, negative perspective on counselors in that particular school. So I've wondered how how counselors are trained in educational setting. Mm. Also, the importance of the students' mental health. Um, I've I've observed that during the pandemic, the topic mental health has actually increased, um, especially in students and teachers as well. So I feel like unit counseling is an important unit in educational settings, because they do prioritize students' mental health, and I really respect for them doing that. Um, another uh, Another knowledge that I've gained is the ability to be empathetic without losing rationality. So personally, when I am empathetic, I'll be very emotional, and I would somehow lose my rationality. But with working alongside with the officers, I have learned to be very um, how should I say it? Uh, I've learned to not be irrational and be overly emotional on specific issue that could trigger it, that is quite triggering. So that is one thing that I have learned, and I feel like that is quite important when it comes to when you have to be a counselor as well. Also, another thing is healthy work-life balance. So for this one, I feel like it's quite important because, especially when you're working in a very heavy, emotionally heavy unit, especially when you're dealing with a lot of students, a lot of issues as well, and you have a lot of cases to deal with, and that could be very triggering, very controversial as well. So I feel like it's taking a toll on the officers as well, but from what I've observed is that they are able to enjoy what they're doing without risking their mental health, and I really admire that. So they do have a healthy work-life balance by having alone time, but also togetherness together with the other staff, and they are allowed to express their everyday routine or what they've done throughout the weekend. They're able to express themselves even in a professional setting. And I feel like that rapport is quite important in this unit because I feel like they need support for each other, and that's also quite important. I don't think this unit can operate if the officers work alone or solo. I feel like there should be support and teamwork. Also, what it takes to be an officer in the UK, in unit counseling, I can tell that it's very heavy, as in the workload is very heavy, um, and then you have to have a very guarded and I guess disassociate yourself from the issue if it gets too much. So it could be very emotionally tiring as well. But what what kept them going is the fact that they represent the students, and if they're not present, the students have no outlet or they can't really express to someone who they can trust. So I feel like being an officer in the unit counseling is worthwhile, and I feel like it's an honor as well, especially when you're representing a lot of students that have different backgrounds, different issues, and there's a lot to tackle, and I really respect and admire that. Okay, moving on to observations and perspectives. For this one, um, I don't really have the points on the slides, but I will talk about the observations and my perspective on those observations. So, firstly, based on the first month of uh, the internship in the organization, is that the officers are really doing their job. They're really diligent in doing their job and very passionate as well. So they are working what they're supposed to be working. This could be seen as not being present in the office, as they have to go to schools to visit cases, um, and then they have to attend a lot of meetings as well with other organizations or schools. Um, Also, they have a lot of experience by doing this for a lot of years, and they are regarded as expert, hence why officers, especially in counseling. So they are very diligent um, in unit counseling. Um, Moreover, it could be seen by the programs they have created, which aims the issues in specific schools. Even though counselors do have their own programs as well, but this one caters to all general issues, and they're not very specific, just general. What is the issue currently? So the newest one that I could think of is Rausch, which is the sexual awareness, raising awareness on sexual harassment. Um, so these programs are quite important for students to be aware of, especially senior as well. So the counselors, they have to be initiative um, with with their supervisors in the unit counseling. So each of the officers, they are supervising each cluster. So for my supervisor, which is Chiguro Sima, she supervises cluster 1, 2, 5, and 6. So she visits the schools in those clusters and evaluate on their monthly performance, or if they have cases as well. An important observation also, since I'm from Kuala Blythe and I'm used to the environment here, so being in another environment, a new environment, I can see that there are different and distinctive behaviors in terms of students. Like in Tumborong, I've visited the school there to give a motivational talk to the year 11 students, and their behavior is quite different from KB students as well, and Bandar students as well. So it's interesting. I find that quite interesting. Another observation is that counselors should have their main responsibility of obtaining students' trust in counseling, because from what I've heard from other students is that they don't have a good rapport with their counselors, as the students' information or issues um, are not kept confidential, and that could risk the students' mental health as well, especially when they do not want to express publicly. So um, there is a break of ethics there. So I feel like that is the confidentiality of the student is quite important, especially for a counselor. So I feel like counselors should prioritize that code whenever they counsel students. Uh, Another observation, this one is just generally in government sector. I feel like they should implement new technology, or at least they have each unit, they have one person who is um, proficient in information technology, especially when the officers are not tech savvy. So I feel like that could be beneficial for all of the units to have at least one um, one person who is proficient in technology. And they should also update the software in each of the uh, technology, such as laptop or PC. Um, I also feel like they should have an external hard drive that they should be given, due to the amount of data that they have in the laptop, and that could slow down the software of the technology, so it wouldn't be very efficient. As from what I've seen um, from one of my officer's laptop, it's very slow, and even if I restart it, it's still going to be slow. So I feel like government overall should prioritize that. Another observation is the in inventory that they have is currently in Malay language. All of them are in Malay language. So um, if they were to let the students answer the inventory, they're more likely to ask a lot of questions, especially the meanings of certain words. Um, like last time, I went to Yayasan secondary school, we gave them the DOS inventory, and most of the students asked, could you explain this sentence to me in English, please? Because I can't understand the meaning. So I have to explain simply what the meaning is in English. So I have to translate it into English. So if that's the case, I feel like it would be more efficient if there is a second version, or at least beneath the Malay there could be an English translation. That would be easier for students to understand without asking. Even if they ask, I feel like they'll just confirm it it is um, whether the sentence uh, whether the sentence is what the person will think. Also, uh, from what I've observed, students nowadays they have a preference towards English language. They're more proficient in English language actually, um, which I find quite interesting, but not entirely surprised due to their exposure to social media. Um, yeah, so even if they were to speak in Malay, I feel like it would be um, a mixture of both Malay and English. Also, when the officers present their information, I feel like there should be simple language and relatable contents to explain so that they would be more interested. Students would be more interested. So following the current trends, also the data obtained should be online, as it would reduce less waste in papers. Um, I feel like the officers should also interact more with the students and also counselors to basically um, have more understanding in certain topics, and then so that they will understand more. Yeah. So that is all from my observations and perspective. Thank you for listening to my presentation, even though I have a bit of stuttering problem. But thank you so much for listening.